Hello and welcome to a second line day. We're exploring gate 19, the gate of wanting, the gate of approach, and the second line is called service. The second line is all about projection, and we can see that this second line is the one that has the highly valued title of service. If you have ever wondered how they chose priestesses for the temple or the little boys that were then the reincarnated Lama, these are the children who were usually pulled out. These are the ones that get automatically recognized by those who are sensitive as being ready to serve at some level. And never forget that there's a bargain that is inherent here in this gate and this stream. If you're going to serve, you want something in return. No, they're of service in return for resources. The resources have to be there before they are ready and willing to serve. Mystically, second lines are called. So this is where you are called to God, for example, where you are called to service. And it's a pressure, it's the root center after all. Part of the mechanic is that you are called to pressure others to join you, to support you, to share the same principles as you, to help you in building this church. The lifetime learning says the dedication of personal resources as a result of external contact. So within this context, personal resources would be, you use your body to build my fences and I will feed you. You work in my fields and I'll take care of you. And it's a classic second line description here because those personality resources can't come in any other way other than as a result of external contact, because the second line is just caught up in their own little world. The exaltation, dedication and service to the highest values, the energy to want to be of service. It's always there and ready. It simply has to be called upon properly. The 19th gate can be very flirtatious, but it is not foolish. Do not confuse those two things. If the 19 gets into a spiritual dilemma in its life, it will try out the Zen Buddhists. And it will try out the Hare Krishnas. And if it's unhappy with its own denomination, it will try out 3 or 4 or 6 different other denominations. It'll visit a church every week, trying to figure out what principles satisfy it. It'll flirt with them all in order to check out those principles and find the highest values. In the detriment, protracted indecision, but given the nature of this position, eventual compliance. The need to be wanted that will eventually turn its energy to service. The 19-2 doesn't know it's flirting with you, and it doesn't know that it needs to be wanted. That may not be where its mind is at all, but that's the signal it's putting out, and everybody else can see it, of course, because it's a second line. So they're always getting pulled into using their root fuel as a resource for service. When we look at these two expressions of the second line, first we have the resistance of being of service, to being a servant in order to get access to the resources. In our age, we do not have this so much. I mean, it's still there, but it's not as much as it was in the past when to be an indentured servant was not an unusual thing. People who worked for others who were not given any kind of salary, but had a bed and board arrangement. They would get fed and they would have a roof over their head, or maybe, a bed in the stable, living as part of whatever the community or the household was. And in return for their labors, that would be the arrangement that they'd have. This form of service, this sort of indentured labor, has been in our society for a long, long time. It's an ancient form of, you could almost call it abuse, is the word that came to my mind, I suppose. It can also be at the highest level, there could be the energy to want to be of service. This is projected out. And this is why these people are chosen when they're very young, so that they can be conditioned to that for the rest of their lives. They project out, I will be of service. And they end up being of service. They end up being servants. They can end up being of service, but not necessarily for the highest values. And on the other side, on the other side, we find that the only way for these people, no matter how much they resist, is that they finally have to be of service in order to get the resources. You know, they have to, they end up in that compliance zone. Otherwise, they do not get in on the bargain and they get left out of the tribe. And if you get left out of the tribe, you don't have a life anymore. This has always been the tribe's greatest weapon. There's nowhere to go if the tribe kicks you out. You know, the 49 is their choosing who should be sacrificed for the good of the tribe. And we're dealing with a mystical channel here. So we can never discount the fact that what is of mundane service can also be spiritual. It can also be the priestess who says, I will serve my goddess. And yet still I want to be rewarded for that. The reward in the spiritual sense is that the goddess will touch me. I will serve you, but come and visit me. You know, fill me with your rapture, fill me with your power. This is the bargain that people will try to strike with God. This is also part of this line. This is the beginning of our whole religious experience, which is also in this service. Someone is naturally projected on that they will be of service and they spend their life at it. They develop this higher principle service. It's built into these 19 twos that they are the ones who are selected in this life to be of service. I am of service to blackbirds. There you go, monstrous creatures. The grounding for the 19-2 is coming from the 33-2, which is called surrender. And surrender often has a mystical or spiritual aspect to it. And to truly be in service must have an element of surrender to it. And if the service is entered into correctly, there's no problem. But if the service has been called out and is perhaps expected, or if it has got that indentured flavor to it, well, then maybe some discernment is required. And remember that discernment is a quality that Ra was really keen our second lines should be educated about. If you're projecting something out unknowingly and you get called out for it, make sure it's correct for you. Make sure you have some way of discerning the correctness of what you're about to commit your energy to. So the moon has been in gate 61 since 3:15 this morning, the head center gate of inner truth and mystery. And next in its journey comes gate 60 at 13:10. This is the gate of limitation and acceptance. We're back to the root center and its pressure. Gate 60 is a format gate in the channel of mutation. It's the format channel for individuality. This influences the entire design. You know, if you get into the aura of somebody with the 60 and the 3, or even just one or other of those, you know, you can expect something to happen, something new to pop up. It's an energy which fluctuates and initiates. It's a pulsing energy that brings mutation or doesn't. Oh, there is the potential for both melancholy and depression, and also for great creativity, especially when the melancholy and the depression are recognized as being part of a mechanic, as being chemistry. You know, chemistry that is just passing through the body and just allowed to move through so the energy can pass in its own correct timing. And gate 41 is next at 2300. This is the moon moving into the energy that we've just come from in our sun, the gate of contraction and decrease, where we find that pruning back and limiting our resources can allow for maximization of resources. This is the potential for all experience that is held here in gate 41, and it tells us that nothing is ever lost when we prune back. The potential for whatever we're pruning never goes away. It's all held there safely. And at 8:45 tomorrow morning, the sun moves into gate 19, which is, of course, not the sun, the moon. Sorry, the moon moves into gate 19, which is our current sun gate. So there may be a little bit of extra focus on what we need or what we think we want as we move into this new cycle. What resources are going to support us and our tribe on this journey. So that is us. That is our second line today in gate 19. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. Yes, I have to go and feed another blackbird. I will see you for a third line tomorrow. And until then, look after yourself. Take care. Go gently.